everybody, and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel. And this is the rating show from the 3-1 victory at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday afternoon. It's a it's a recorded show. It's going. It's Tuesday afternoon. I've just managed to re-watch the game today. As I always say, you see lots of stuff when you watch it a second time around, other than watching it live. And also, you sometimes, when you watch it, if you win, you sometimes think you perhaps played better than you did, or some of your players played better than they actually did. You sometimes think that from watching it live, when you're really keen on it going well and you're excited about the game. But also when you lose, I think you sometimes think your team have played a little bit worse than they actually did as well. And this was certainly the case when I've re-watched this game for the second time around. And as much as we did play some really good football, I was a little bit happier with the way they played after I watched it live than I was after I watched it second time around. One or two of the players didn't play quite as well as I actually thought they had from watching it live. But anyway, I've got the ratings from the Manchester Evening News in front of me, and starting with Dean Henderson in goal. The Evening News have said he could do nothing about the goal and saved well on 2 occasions at 1-1, which is obviously important. If they go behind at that stage, you never know what might happen. In the second half, it says to reassert his status as United's new number 1, which it does appear as though he is the new number 1. They've given him an 8 out of 10. I would say it's a little bit over the top. By my ratings, 8 is very good. I would just say he had a good game. He played well. He had a good game. That's it, and I think that's good enough. So a 7 for me. It's no disrespect to him that I've downmarked him from the Evening News. I just think to say that he played well is adequate for certain. Wan Bissaka, the opposite way around. I think they've undermarked him a little bit. They've pressed high on Son, but still failed to impress in either half, with United more dependent on the left-hand side. They've given him a 5. I thought Wan Bissaka played better than that, better than an average game. A 5 is only average. I would say a 6 for Wan Bissaka on my markings, which is a decent to above average game. 5 is average, 6 is decent to above average. So I think Wan Bissaka certainly deserved a 6. Victor Lindelof, they've also only given a 5 to. Again, I'll give him a 6. A 5 is only average. I know a ball went under his foot, or to the side of his foot, if you like, a bouncing ball that led to a goal. They've showed why United want a new centre-back, undid his recent good form with woeful positioning. Well, I saw some good positioning as well. And reading for Son Heung-min's goal, it says, and they've given him a 5. Look, he was caught out for that goal, and as I often say, it works the same at both ends of the field. A player, to me, can't just score a great goal and it means he's had a really good game, and a defender can't make a mistake that then means he's had a bad game. I know it can be disastrous making a mistake, of course it can, but it doesn't mean that you've had a bad 90 minutes. It's one little moment in a game, and there's something that I call outcome bias, the actual outcome of a mistake. That mistake would not be marked down as badly if they did not ended up scoring. Say the keeper would have got him out of trouble. Say Son would have hit the post with his shot and it would have bounced out for a goal kick, something like that. It isn't marked down as badly. Now, I don't see it like that. I see it that if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Now, if you get punished for it, it doesn't make that mistake. Of course, it appears worse, and it is worse for the team. Of course it's worse, but it doesn't mean that you made a worse mistake. Sometimes players in your team make worse mistakes and don't get punished for them. So when you make a mistake, I call it outcome bias. There's too much outcome bias. The actual outcome of it was that it cost us a goal, but there are other players in the team made worse mistakes without it costing us goals. So I think to give him a 5, and they've actually mentioned that mistake, I think it's out of order. I think Lindelof, possibly was worth a 7, which is just a good game. But I'll just mark him up to 6, which means he had a decent to above average game. Harry Maguire, Harry Maguire, they've given a 7 to compared to Victor Lindelof 6. Apart from that little mistake, I thought Victor Lindelof was at least as good as Harry Maguire, at least as good. They put often off the pace, and yet they've given him a 7. Often off the pace, and his highlight was tutoring Regulion in English expletives. I didn't see that bit. Commanding at set pieces, though. They've given him a 7 only because I've given Lindelof a 6, and I don't agree. I'm sure Harry made a couple of mistakes that weren't punished, and Lindelof made a mistake that was punished. I'm going to say a 6. I don't really need to down Mark Harry from his 7. 7 means he had a good game or he played well, but I don't think he played any better than Victor Lindelof, so I'll mark him as a 6 as well. And then Luke Shaw, they've given a 6-2. An uncharacteristically sluggish performance in the first 45. All the more baffling given he came off at half-time against Granada. I don't see the relevance to that, I really don't. Having played half a game 3 days ago. Much more intense after the pause. They've given him a 6. That means, well, I was about to say all the back 4 a 6, but they've given my marks. They've given Wan Bissaka a 5, they've given Lindelof a 5, they've given Maguire a 7. I think Luke Shaw is at least worth his 6. I'm going to speak about 1 or 2 of the players in a minute, and as I've said once or twice before, I'm going to talk about I mean, nobody does this when you see these ratings in different newspapers, and I'm sure a lot of them just do it for a little bit of fun, and obviously maybe it sells newspapers or it sells advertising space. But is a player's mark, and I know I've mentioned it a few times, and I'm going to say this more so about 1 or 2 of the players, but is a player's mark about, in fact I'll say it about Luke Shaw as well, is it about how he's played compared to how he usually plays, or is it about how he plays compared to his teammates? You know, is it an average performance for the team, or is it an average performance by that player's standards, if you follow what I mean? So Luke Shaw, a 6 is above average. You know, was it above average for his own usual performances, or is it above average because he was an above average standard player in the team? And I would suggest that by his own standards, Luke Shaw was average at best, but he certainly wasn't only average in the team. He played well compared to most of his teammates for me. But the 6 is decent to above average, and I'll stick with that, which in my book, that means all the back 4 have all got the same mark. But I will say that Luke Shaw was probably slightly better than the rest. Scott McTominay, booked for a nasty foul on Ndombele, and his aggression cost United a 1-0 lead, even if he was unfortunate. Regained composure to shield the back 4. His aggression cost United a 1-0 lead. Oh, but they're talking about him slapping Son in the face and the goal got disallowed. I think that's a bit harsh, levelling that at him, I really do. Regained his composure to shield the back 4. I think Scott McTominay overall played well. I'm going to give most of the players are getting at least decent, which is 6, or well, which is 7, and 1 or 2 are going to get very well. Which is 8, but I will say Scott McTominay played well. For me, I'm giving Scott McTominay a 7. Now, here's one that I find really interesting when you're comparing, when I'm talking about, is it about how that player normally plays, or is it about comparing him to his teammates? They've given Fred a 7. Recalled, they only rested him the other day, but they've put recalled and had a first half to forget. I agree with that. Transformed in the second and instinctively scored the equaliser by bursting into the area. Instinctively, he said, that's a strange word to use for Fred when it comes to scoring a goal, because obviously he scores so infrequently. Is it fair to say that's it, his instincts that are kicking in to get him that goal? That seems a bit wrong to me. But it was a really good goal. They've given him a 7 out of 10. Which is well, you know, he had a good game. Did he have a good game? By his own standards, he had a good game, but he still played 1 or 2 really poor passes. There was as they call it, a hospital ball to Pogba in the first half, where Pogba had to go into a challenge to win it. There was a ball in the first half where he smashed it from like the inside right channel across the field, and it went well wide of Luke Shaw and out for a throw-in, and he had a bit of a word with Luke Shaw. You could see Luke Shaw saying, I don't know what he was saying, but it looked like he was saying, what on earth was that, Fred? You know what I mean? It's got to be better than that. Now, sometimes people say to me, such a body's pass rate was as good as another person's pass rate. What are you talking about? When you watch a player passing the ball, if his passing is sometimes terribly wide of the mark, surely it gives you an inkling of either A, of how good or how poor that player is, or at least how well or how badly he's playing in a given game. And with Fred, I find that some of his passing is horrendous. There's no other way to put it. That pass to Shaw was horrendous in the first half. There's one in the second half where we've taken a corner and it comes out to him, and on the volley, he tries to, I think it was Bruno that had taken the corner, he tries to knock it back out to the wing to Bruno, and he overhits it dramatically, and it's 20 yards wide of Bruno, and it goes into touch for a throw into them. And I think it's important that you don't just look at stats and say, right, he had an 80% pass completion. If the passes that he's not making are absolutely horrendous, it doesn't really make that much difference. If you're going to miss the man, it doesn't make that much difference really, because you're giving the ball away anyway. If you're giving the ball away, you're giving the ball away. But what I'm talking about is when you watch somebody give it away horrendously and it's miles wide of the mark. Surely that's worse, or it certainly looks worse, than a player who might have the same pass percentage rate and yet his passes were only a yard in front of someone and he couldn't quite reach it, or maybe it just about gets intercepted. You know, some of Fred's passing is absolutely shocking. On the plus side, he did score that goal, and not only did he score that goal, but he did a pretty good impression of Xavi and Iniesta there. It was unbelievable. He gave a ball to Bruno and got it back, all in tight spaces. He gave a ball to Rashford and got it back. Then he gave the ball to Cavani and he followed up Cavani's shot and scored. It's an absolutely brilliant goal, and that's why they're talking about Fred and giving him a 7, and they've mentioned his goal. But I think overall, probably by his own standards. Now, this is the thing. Is it by his own standards or compared to the other players? Because compared to the other players, I think Fred was average or decent at best, so 5 or 6. But by his own standards, he doesn't normally rattle the ball around like that around the edge of the box. He doesn't normally score a goal. And it's not just that. So, he also did quite a few good balls as well. I think by his own standards, he played quite well. But that's by his own standards. I think compared to the rest of his teammates on the day, he was just average to decent. So they've given him a 7. I'm going to say a 6 for Fred, which is decent to above average. Marcus Rashford, they've given a 5 to. Inexplicably switched to the right after scoring 2 goals in his last 2 from the left. Moved back to the left. Well, he had a little spell back on the left, but he didn't really move back to the left. Had little impact, they've put. This is happening quite a lot with Marcus. I think people are beginning to see that he's not playing. A lot of people, I don't think Marcus has been playing well for quite a while. I'm not a big fan of Marcus's. I think he runs down blind alleys too often. I don't think he has the ball under control well enough when he's dribbling it. There was an incident in the first half where he got fouled. It looked like he got fouled on the edge of the box, and they zoomed in on it, and the commentator said, yeah, it should have been a foul. It probably was a foul, but he's running with the ball. He hasn't really got it under control. I think he was going to lose. Look, he still should have got the foul, but he's going to lose the ball anyway. He's just not got it properly under control. And there was another one. There was one in the second half where he did quite well to nick it off one of their players. He got back in his defensive shape. He nicked it up right on the edge of our own box, and he turns and starts running up the field with the ball. He's got Bruno running to his right. He's got Pogba running to his left. They've got lots of players up the field. It's a really good breakaway. So he doesn't just run into trouble in their half and on the edge of the box, but he runs it straight into trouble and doesn't get it taken off him, as often happens. The player has to challenge him, and I think it goes out for a throw-in to us. You might say no harm done, but if you see the clip, you'll see Pogba and Bruno's to his right, Pogba, they both throw their arms in the air. If he just slips it to the right or the left, it's a great breakaway. It's actually an opportunity for United to make a chance, but he's in his own third and he runs into trouble with the ball rather than passing it. And I'm not surprised, by the way. I'm not surprised. But they've said he had little impact. They've given him a 5. he was also substituted on 70 minutes. People might say that's because he's carrying an injury. It might well be because he's carrying an injury. I get that. I do get that, and he's being forced into action. But how much is he being forced into action? We've got Van der Beek on the bench, we've got Mason Greenwood on the bench. What's all he frightened of? I don't get it. Mason Greenwood is often selected wide on the right. I think it's pretty common knowledge that Marcus doesn't really find it comfortable on the right. He prefers playing on the left. The right has inexplicably switched to the right. It's not inexplicable at all. Paul Pogba played on the left in Milan for the second half, and he made the difference. And in Milan, we played really well in the second half. He played on the left in this game and was one of the better performers, and really made us tick. So it's not inexplicable. He likes to have McTominay and Fred, which means he's got to try and find a place for Pogba. So with Pogba's best position, it might even be his best position, let alone his next best position. But he's left, wide left. So he plays wide left, which then it's Marcus who's getting shoehorned into the team on the right. I don't see why Mason Greenwood didn't start on the right. Dan James would be my choice, but Dan James apparently was injured. He wasn't even in the squad. But from the squad that we had available on the day, why does Marcus even start if he's got an injury? I'd like to get to the bottom of this. I really would, because Mason Greenwood's like, look, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but he's like the blue-eyed boy. Everybody's raving about him. Everybody loves him. He plays wide on the right a lot. Marcus doesn't play wide on the right a lot. He likes to play wide on the left. So why play him on the right if he's carrying an injury? Why not just play Mason? I don't get it. So is he carrying an injury? We all say this, but is he? I don't know. But anyway, they've given him a 5, and a 5 is average, and I would say that Marcus did have an average game at best. This is an interesting one. I meant to look this up. I haven't looked it up. The querulous act. Querulous. I'm going to look this up after I've finished. Querulous. Querulous, however you say it. The querulous act is becoming tiresome. About Bruno, from a player largely out of form for 2 months. Poor in the first half, but much improved in the second, and giving him a 6. This is about Bruno. This is the Manchester Evening News. This is I've just mentioned one player who I regard as a blue-eyed boy. Obviously, Bruno's another blue-eyed boy, and for the Manchester Evening News to be writing this, I find it astonishing. I really do. Although I forgot to look up that word to see what that actually means, but I didn't forget to look up the last few games. In the last 12 games that United have played, Bruno's not scored a goal in open play. I think writers and fans, pundits, I think they're very fickle. I really do. They're saying that Bruno's been playing poorly for 2 months because he scored 3 goals in the last 12 games, but they're all penalties. It's great to have a good penalty taker. It's great to have someone you can rely on. All that is perfectly true. It's also true that someone who takes penalties has got an advantage over someone who doesn't take penalties when you start to compare people's goal scoring ratios. Both of those things are true. So he has got an advantage over other players, and I'm a bit surprised when he's got 3 goals, even though they are all penalties, in the last 12 United games. He's not probably played in every one, but most of them. But he scored 3 goals in the last 12 games. They're all penalties. Is it because he stopped scoring goals in open play that they're saying that he's playing badly? Because I believe everyone was saying that he was playing brilliantly because he was scoring goals. And now that he's not scoring goals, they think he's playing badly. I don't see it. I watched Bruno play, and I think he played. There was still 1 or 2 too many things that he did wrong, that are simple things. He knocked one ball into the box when there was nobody there, and he should have passed it backwards. And a lot of people say, he's trying to make something. Don't give the ball away cheap. Just give it easy. If there's nothing in there, don't just knock it in for no given reason. It went straight through to the keeper without anybody even chasing it. And there was another one of my pet hates, and I know even a broken clock's right twice in a day. I don't want to sound like a stuck record, but if he stopped doing it, I wouldn't be able to say it every week. There's another one which I say nearly every game he plays, it's played up to him and he flicks it on when he's got it's right to his feet, get hold of it, and then the one it's in the second half, he's only just inside their half. there's a Spurs player 4 yards behind him. It goes straight to that Spurs player. Wan Bissaka's on the wing. I don't know if it was meant for Wan Bissaka because it doesn't go sideways at all. It goes straight on. And it goes straight to the defender who's behind him. It doesn't even angle towards the touchline. So I don't know if it was meant for Wan Bissaka. And it is 10 yards to the right as well. So I'm not sure it was. I think it's just a flick on, hoping for it to go to someone. But the Spurs player is behind him. And the next player who's behind that Spurs player is a Spurs player as well. So what on earth Bruno's thinking when he's doing this is beyond me. He needs to cut that out of his game. Get hold of the ball when it comes into your feet and pass it. And keep us in possession of the ball. But I do believe he did simplify his game a lot. I thought he played quite well yesterday. I think Pogba's influence when he's in a wide role, especially when he's in the centre of the field, Paul, I think he maybe still tries one or two too many long passes. When he plays wide, like he did against AC Milan, and then again yesterday, I think it's infectious and it gets the other players playing this short passing game, particularly in the last 40, 45 minutes of the game. And I think Bruno actually played decent yesterday. As I say, 2 or 3 things I'd like him not to do, but overall, not too bad. So they're saying that he's playing badly. I believe they're saying he's playing badly because he's not scoring any goals. But I also believe when he was scoring goals, they were only saying he was playing really well because he was scoring goals. There's just moments in games, just a moment in a game. He had a cracking shot yesterday. The day before yesterday, wasn't it? He had a cracking shot with his left foot from about, 5 yards outside the box. Keeper made a proper decent day, saved sharp down to his left. It's one that he should save, but I've seen keepers fumble him. He's got plenty of weight behind it. It could have gone in. If the keeper would have fumbled it and it would have gone in, I believe the writer would be saying that Bruno's back to his best form. That's what I think he'd be saying. And that would all be because the keeper has fumbled a shot into the net, if you understand what I'm saying. It's ridiculous. And it's ridiculous that they're saying he's playing badly now. He's playing pretty similar. I think actually a little bit better yesterday than what he was playing. So, but they've given him a 6, which is decent to above average. And that's how I think he plays generally, Bruno. Decent to above average. I would say a 6. I agree with what they're saying. Paul Pogba beautifully created Edison Cavani's chance, only for VAR to deny United a goal. Set the standards for United's attacking. They've given him a 9. A 9 is a fantastic score. I very rarely give a 9, which is outstanding. I would give him an 8. Very good, but it's the top end of an 8. He might be approaching 9 perhaps, but he certainly played very well. So he's the first 8 for me on the sheet. So I do think he played very well, Paul Pogba, yesterday. Got caught in possession a few times. It was very scrappy the first half, not a few times, a couple of times, and give it away sloppy a couple of times. But it was a really scrappy first half. But second half, Paul Pogba took the game by the scruff of the neck. Brilliant ball for Cavani that Cavani scored from, and also created Greenwood's goal with where he beat a couple of men as well. And when he beat a couple of men, I thought, I've seen Paul take an extra touch in, and I was just on my fan camp with Flex on the night. I made the mistake of saying passing it for, when he passed it first time, I didn't think he was going to pass it first time. Of course, it wasn't a first time pass to me is when the ball comes to you and you literally pass it with your very first touch. It's just beaten 2 men. It wasn't a first time pass at all. But when he'd escaped from those 2 men and the ball was 2 yards in front of him in space, I've seen him take another touch when there's no necessity for another touch on plenty of occasions. And when that happened and he broke free and I could see Greenwood in space, in my mind I was thinking, please knock it now, please knock it now. First time I said on the fan cam. But that was the right moment to knock it, and he knocked it, and the rest is history. Greenwood scored a good goal. But overall, they couldn't get near Paul Pogba in the second half, and I was very pleased with him. And like I say, the way he plays with his simple passing as well in that game is infectious, and I think that rubbed off on some of his teammates. Edison Cavani clinically finished from Pogba's pass, but the goal was chalked off. Up until then, he was a passenger, but the goal galvanised him, and he tested Hugo Lloris more than once before he beat him. They've given him an 8. I will agree with an 8, so I've got 2 8s, Paul Pogba and Edison Cavani. I gave Cavani man of the match on my fan cam. but there's not much to choose between them, very little. But people do, I've just said it, single moments don't count for a lot, but if you're involved in numerous single moments, then they add up. So for people who like single moments, very unlucky to have the goal chalked off a great run and a great pass by Pogba, and he finished it brilliantly. That was Cavani. He also had the shot that the keeper saved. He made a good run again, and Fred found him in the box. The keeper parried his shot, which bounced to Fred, and Fred scored. Then he also scored, obviously, brilliantly taken diving header. Another important moment. I'm on my fourth moment here of for people who like specific moments in a game. He headed one onto his own post in the first half. He knew he had to head it. Sissoko was just behind him. It was going straight on Sissoko's head, about 4 yards out. 99% certain Sissoko would have scored if Cavani wouldn't have headed it. So Cavani had to jump. He had to get a touch on it. He couldn't. It was too difficult for him to direct it. It was just out, only just within his reach. I was about to say out of his reach, but obviously it was just within his reach. But it was only just within his reach, and his little deflected header hit his own post. But it did prevent Sissoko from equalising. I think it was 2-1 at the time. So that was an important touch in his own box as well. So 4, 3 in their box and one in his own box. Plus his work rate was good. His laying off of the ball was good. And I'll stick with him just about as my man of the match, although Paul did run him really close. It's a tight one, to be honest. It is a tight one, but I've given them both an 8, and they both played well without any shadow of a doubt. That's that for now. It's Tuesday today. I'll be back tomorrow with a preview of the Granada game. Obviously, we 2-0 up from the first leg. As I always say, as a fan, we can say this: the players can't think like this, the staff can't think like this. But surely that one's in the bag. I'll have a guess tomorrow at what the starting lineup will be when we find out a little bit more about any injuries. Obviously, Dan James was missing at the weekend. Martial's out, they reckon, for the season, don't they? I think Dan James had a knee injury at the weekend. I hope he's fit. He'll come back into that game for sure for the Granada game. There'll be a few changes if he's fit to play, of course. But I'll have a go at that tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed that show. If you have enjoyed it, please subscribe. Please tell all your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anybody. Keep stum.